Capitalism, what a game. You have to have some capital to play the game of capitalism, but did you realize there's 6 types of capital? Capitalism, what a topic, capitalism. Surely gets misaligned in these days, doesn't it? Here's the trick about capitalism. In order to play the game of capitalism, you actually have to have capital. Now you're sitting there and thinking, yep, I need a lot of money to play the game of capitalism. I'll make a suggestion to you. Money is part of the game of capitalism, but there's other types of capital that we seem to forget. What do I mean? There's financial capital, there's educational capital, there's reputational capital, there's relational capital, there's attitudinal capital, and there's spiritual capital. You see, we start off in life and sometimes we say, well, I just don't have enough financial capital to play the game of capitalism. And I'll make a suggestion. If you have good educational capital, what do you mean by educational capital? If you have the right degrees, if you have the right education, if you've grown yourself, then you have good educational capital to fall back on. Well, what's another type of capital? Your reputational capital. What do people think of you? What are people saying about you? How do people perceive you in the marketplace? So you see, you have some educational capital, you also have some reputational capital that you can be playing this game of capitalism with. How about this, relational capital? Who do you know and who knows you? You see, you got more capital than you ever think. You don't necessarily need money to play the game of capitalism. You've got good educational, good mindset capital, good reputational capital, good relational capital. How about attitudinal capital? I'll make a suggestion. I'll make a suggestion to you. Better to have a good attitude capital than financial capital, because a person with a lot of money and a terrible attitude, they can't play that game very well, but a person with a great attitude will one day be able to play the game of capitalism. Spiritual capital says there's something bigger than me out there. So if you really add it up and you say, I want to play the game of capitalism, but I don't have any money, I'd ask you to look at this. What's your educational capital? What's your reputational capital? What's your relational capital? What's your attitudinal capital? And what's your spiritual capital? Because here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. You know what? You can be, watch this, you can be poor in pocket, but rich in this capital. And if you're rich in the 5 capitals that I just mentioned, educational, reputational, relational, attitude, and spiritual, one day you'll be rich in pocket as well. Work on your capital.